Good afternoon, everyone, or whatever time of day you're tuning in from. So thrilled to have you joining us here on our YouTube channel. My name is Fritz Berger. I'm an Assistant Director of Admission here at Northwestern University, and really excited to welcome you to day 3 of our Northwestern Admissions Engineering Week. We have a really great program for you this evening here in Evanston / Chicago / North Carolina and St. Louis, kind of getting a full U.S. representation today from our panelists. So for today's program, we're going to be focusing on Northwestern's Farley Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And today, like I mentioned, I'm joined by some staff and students at Farley. So to start off, I'm going to allow the director and then both students to introduce themselves, and then they're going to dive into their presentation today. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Professor Hayes Ferguson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. It's a privilege and pleasure to be with you on this afternoon from Evanston. I am Hayes Ferguson. I recently joined the Farley Center as director. Previously had been at the Garage, where I met Drew and Caleb, who are both very active in Northwestern's entrepreneurial ecosystem. They have been very active as entrepreneurs themselves. They have TA'd at Farley and done other things at the Garage, participated in various programs. So I'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves, but I thought that they would be great to join this panel because of the experiences they've had. So I'll turn it over to Caleb first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caleb. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a senior at Northwestern, and I minor in entrepreneurship through the Farley Center. I also spend a lot of time at the Garage, like Hayes mentioned. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to y'all today.
And before it occurs to me that I should let you all know what the Garage is. If you don't already know, that is the university's incubator for startups. It's the extracurricular component of what we do, and we work closely. There's a close relationship between Farley and the Garage. So Drew, take it away.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Drew. When I first came to Northwestern, really found the Farley Center in the Garage right away, and have been there kind of ever since. Like Hayes mentioned, TAing classes. Doing a lot in the Garage, and now I'm a third-year student minoring in entrepreneurship and majoring in our School of Education and Social Policy.
Terrific. Thanks, guys. Well, without further ado, let's jump into the deck and show you what's happening or who we are. Who are we? I think this is a great representation of who we are. We are at a high level, cross-disciplinary academic center that serves all of Northwestern. And you're going to hear a lot about that as we go on. It's important. While we are housed at the McCormick School of Engineering, we do work with faculty from across the university at various schools, and of course attract students from all of those schools. So it is not unusual, and we'll touch on this later on, to have a class that is a mix of McCormick students with medical students from Feinberg or School of Communications, that's SOC down there. We are big believers in collaborating and partnering. We think that that's the best way to innovate, and sort of piggybacking on a Northwestern slogan, "and" is in our DNA, and we certainly believe the more "and" there is, the better we are at Farley. So that's who we are at the highest level. And the next is, where are we? Well, as Fritz indicated, right now we're in all sorts of different places, sitting in front of computers. Me in my living room in Evanston, Drew at home. I think I'm used to seeing Drew in his basement. I think he's moved to another room at home, but he's in North Carolina. Caleb is in St. Louis. But when we are able to go back to campus, which we hope will be sooner than later, we will be in this beautiful building, the Ford Motor Company Engineering Design Center. It's pictured from the exterior from Sheridan Road, which is the main road that runs along the university. This is a beautiful building. You can get a glimpse on the right into, well, I think some of you actually may have even just virtually toured it, but I don't know if you stopped at the new Farley Suite. We recently moved into this area that you see sort of suspended, the glass area that overlooks the shop. It's a really spectacular light-filled space that we look forward to. We were at a smaller space earlier, made this move during the remote time, so we haven't really lived in it. But once we do, and once we're back on campus, we really look forward to it being a place where students and others can come co-work. We've got a nice space over to the side that's very light filled. And of course, there's great access to, there's a maker space outside of this area with 3D printers, and of course the shop downstairs where you can build all sorts of cool prototypes. So we are an academic center and then some, but I did want to at least share the list of courses that we offer this year. This is an example. It really runs the gamut. We offer principles of entrepreneurship. It's important to keep in mind that this is a center where you can get a minor, but you can also take classes a la carte, if you will. If you want to just come and get a sense of what's entrepreneurship all about, there are lots of classes that you can come in from multiple entry points. There are, in some of the classes are application-based or have prerequisites, but many do not. Principles of Entrepreneurship is our most fundamental class, and that is what it sounds like. And you come in and you learn about entrepreneurship 101, although in this case, it's actually number 225. We have also another interesting class, and this is a mix of undergraduate and graduate students in our product management class. That is taught by Burju Shah, who is an alum and the head of health at Uber. So our faculty, and I'll share a little bit more about them, is really a mix of academics and real world practitioners, and I think is part of the secret sauce at Farley. So you can see and dig into the course descriptions more deeply on our website, but this gives you a sense of what's offered. Something else that I think is worth pointing out, because it has some historical significance tied to the Farley Center, and that is that we offer a startup accounting and finance class that is taught by two accountants who work with startups. The reason we teach that is actually closely tied to the founding of the Farley Center. We are named in honor of a McCormick graduate turned very successful entrepreneur by the name of Jim Farley. And it was he who really felt that as valuable as his engineering education was, it would have been helpful to take some fundamental business classes while he was a student. And we feel the same. And so we offer the accounting and finance class. You may have noticed on the previous page reference to our NUvention courses, and this is really the signature series at Farley, and something we're very proud of, and I believe rightfully so. And I can kind of do some bragging about Farley because I'm relatively new as director and am not the one who created these courses, but what they are, as are most of our classes, but this is sort of a hyper version of this, cross-disciplinary courses in specific subject areas that bring together students for either one 10-week quarter or 2 quarters totaling 20 weeks to come in and start a venture in different areas. So we have medical that will typically draw students from of course, the medical school, but you also have engineering students and others, undergraduates, graduate students who come together. Typically that class starts in the fall. It typically begins with students interviewing in-person physicians at the Feinberg School of Medicine to try to identify problems that they will then spend the rest of the quarter and the subsequent quarter solving. This year we were not able to physically trail and talk to physicians, but incredibly technology has done very well. This is a class that in the past has produced a lot of medical devices. This year, my understanding as this first quarter wraps up is there have been a lot of startups that are focused on software. But the way the classes typically work is you gather and either the faculty or the students themselves will choose teams. We like to get a real diversity in expertise. So that's one of the reasons that sometimes the faculty will curate those teams. We identify the problem, come up with an idea to solve that problem, and then spend the next many weeks working closely with mentors and of course the faculty to figure out what the solution is. And I'm happy to say that in some cases, what is begun in these classes goes on to be something that students pursue after graduation. And we have a couple of examples of those later in the presentation. There is a growing interest in entrepreneurship. Obviously, I say it very often, and I believe it, that there is no better time to innovate, no better time to be an entrepreneur. And we are certainly seeing that in the growth of interest at the Farley Center. This gives you a quick glance of how much we've grown. I referenced the entrepreneurship minor program earlier. That is a new program that started just 2 years ago and already has 108 students as of last year pursuing that minor. And this year our numbers are up again. And so we expect to have continued growth in both the minor and again, in classes where students might necessarily be pursuing a minor, but they want to get more of a sense or do something entrepreneurial, to have that academic experience while they are at Northwestern. And I should say that the minor grew out of a certificate. That was what was initially offered, and based on the demand and just the general interest, we were able to convert that to a minor. So this gives you a snapshot of where our students are coming from. Not surprisingly, you'll see we have a lot. In fact, our biggest draw is McCormick. We draw from McCormick, and that there's no surprise since we are housed at McCormick. But I think it's worth noting that the real variety here, you'll see Weinberg Arts and Science drawing big numbers, the graduate school, and that's a lot of students who may be pursuing non-law, non-medical degrees. I'll do some translations of these different names if you're not up to speed, but Beanan is our music school, Kellogg our business school, Medill journalism, Pritzker law, School of Education and Social Policy, and I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that Drew and Caleb are both in that school. SOC is School of Communications, and last but certainly not least is SPS, which is the School of Professional Studies. So we really do make an effort. The very mission of our center is to serve the university, and this shows that we are doing that successfully. And I wanted to put some faces on our students. On the left is Anna Cornell, and her story, I think, is very interesting. I know her both through Farley and the Garage. Again, there's often overlap. She, early in her educational career at Northwestern, took a Farley class and decided that she was going to pursue something she had long been interested in, and that was to create an at-home DNA kit. This was something she had long been interested in, but her parents said, no way, you're not going to do this through a big company like Ancestry or 23andMe, because we don't want our privacy violated. So she said, I'll do it myself, which I love. I mean, it's the ultimate entrepreneurial approach. She would build this on her own. So she started doing it in a Farley class, and this has evolved into a robust business that she is running while she's in school. We have been able to connect her. She is an engineer. She's in McCormick. What she was lacking, because gosh, she was only a couple of years out of high school, was the business guidance. And so we've been able to provide her with mentorship, of course, academic training. And then she is making so many strides that we are connected to the larger Chicago and, quite frankly, the US entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we've been able to connect her with 1871 as the Chicago Innovation Incubator. She's doing an online accelerator through them, and she also was selected to participate in an I-Corps program that provides very much hands-on mentoring and the possibility of some funding. So I think Anna may be a sophomore, possibly a junior at this point, but she's doing a lot, and it's very exciting to see that happening. Over on the right is Cade, and this is an online gaming app, or a gaming app that helps track winnings, both the winnings of games and also the financial aspects of that. These are juniors now, I believe, Spencer Levitt and Austin Pager. They, again, I'm pretty sure met in the Farley class, and they have been running with this ever since. And they placed second in VentureCat. And VentureCat is the university's annual competition for startups. This is something that is a collaborative effort of both the Garage and Farley. We also work very closely with Kellogg and the Pritzker School of Law on this annual competition, at which close to $300,000 in prize money is available. So it's an incredible opportunity for our students, not only to get a crack at getting some funding, as these guys did. I think they took home $50,000 or $60,000, which is a significant amount when you're just getting going. But it's also the experience of preparing to pitch to a live audience, virtual or in person. We pivoted very quickly to virtual this past spring, but we also provide, in addition to the prize money, there are opportunities for everybody to come and work with coaches that we provide, designers that are provided by the competition, to really help students prepare to make a pitch. And for those who, which by the way, if you're prepared to make a pitch of a product or a venture, you're prepared to do all sorts of things. It's great training, regardless of whether you're going to continue to try to raise money after you graduate. So a little more recognition for our students. I alluded to some of the recognition they've received within the university, but we're super proud that our students also are recognized increasingly beyond campus. And there you will see Drew and Caleb and Liliana and Anna were four Farley students selected by Chicago NO's leading innovation publication. This is a really big deal that they were selected as 25 rising Chicago entrepreneurs and technologists, 25 and younger. So I think percentage-wise, we did very well. There were some other Northwestern students, but we take particular pride in the fact that these four who were highlighted in this annual list are Farley students. And let's see, we don't want to see that. So referenced a little bit what happens after you graduate. Farley students head in all sorts of directions, and that's fine with us. In some cases, they proceed to pursue their ventures. And I wanted to share these three examples of alums who are continuing to work on projects that they started at Northwestern in Farley classes. They are bootstrapping their way to the next level. They are all out of Northwestern, but some of them picked up money at VentureCat. NUmix is an example of one that is going still. They continue to get accolades. They won the 2020 inaugural US Bank Clean Tech Inclusion Award. Hubley's a wonderful example, I think, of this sort of magical mix that really differentiates Farley from, I believe, other entrepreneurship centers. And that is that we not only bring students from different schools and leading schools at that, but we also really like that we have undergraduates and graduates in the same room. And sometimes that causes some head scratching, because if you're a Kellogg student and you've been out working for a few years, you might wonder, well, what am I going to gain by working with an undergrad? Well, I can tell you from experience and knowing these teams, you can gain a lot, because often they bring very fresh perspective. Casey was an undergraduate who took the NUvention medical class, was teamed up with a couple of medical students, and this was a few years ago, and they set out to design a better device for doing intracranial drilling. I won't get into the details of it because I'm not well enough versed in it, although I have seen it evolve over the years. But the exciting outcome of this is that Casey, who was, I think, a sophomore when she began on this project, is now the CEO of Hubley, which is now a couple of years out of Northwestern, and they are bootstrapping and doing very well. She left, she took a path that's not unusual, and that is that she took a big job with a bank immediately upon graduation and was working on this part-time. And when they started getting some traction with Hubley, she left her six-figure job to work on this full-time. And she, until the quarantine, she was based in San Francisco in an accelerator there. And on the right is a very recent graduate, Ibrahim Al-Noor, this guy is super prescient. A couple of years ago, he started telling us how important it was to wash hands for at least 20 seconds. I hadn't really heard of the importance of that. And he thought, well, you might have that knowledge, but are you going to do it? So where they are right now, the timing's been great for them, is they've developed a device that they hope to put in schools and airports and other places that will effectively measure and gamify your hand washing. So stay tuned for more from City Health Tech. Those are examples of our alums who have gone on to pursue ventures. I want to emphasize, though, that we recognize that not everybody is going to want to go out and build a company, and that is not the purpose of Farley. We are an educational center at an educational institution, and we are here to provide our students with entrepreneurial skills. And we are delighted if you go on and do something completely that is not a startup. That's fine. And that, by the way, is more typical. We have Becca Ibarra, who had received a certificate when she graduated from CESP. She's now Etsy Senior Manager, Engineering Strategy and Operations. Charbel, somebody I got to know well, both at the Garage and at Farley, and through co-advising the University Entrepreneurial Club called EPIC, graduated from McCormick, immediately took a job as a product manager at Groupon, now is at Chowbus, which is a fast-growing food delivery company. Samir Mayakar, another really interesting path. He started Natograph while he was at Farley as a Kellogg student, and that has gone on to be very successful, as has he as an individual. He was named by Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot to be her deputy mayor for economic and neighborhood development. So again, all sorts of paths you can take after you've been in Farley classes, and there's no prescribed route. Our faculty, I wish I could go on and on about what an incredible collection of teachers we have, but here are just a few examples. We do, as I mentioned earlier, bring in a mix of real-world practitioners, that's accomplished professionals, serial entrepreneurs, but we also are able to tap into our very distinguished faculty in the engineering school and beyond. John Rogers is a serial inventor who, among many other things, he's created a device. I should be wearing it. I sometimes have it around my neck, but I bought it at the Apple store. It measures how much UV one takes in when you're out in the sun. This is more extraordinary. He has worked on technology that allows premature babies to be monitored without wires, really through very soft, unobtrusive patches put on the baby. So he teaches at Farley every year a wearable technologies class. And I just feel incredibly grateful that we can have somebody of his caliber interacting with our students. It's a pretty exciting opportunity, as is the opportunity to study under Neil Sales Griffin, who is a Northwestern graduate, serial entrepreneur, and right now the managing director of Techstars which is an accelerator for entrepreneurs who need a little guidance and some money. Trish Thomas, another serial entrepreneur who is teaching. So there are a lot of other people. I'd encourage you to go check out the bios on our website. Our network extends beyond our impressive faculty. We've got extraordinary alums who are willing to help in all sorts of capacities. They come in as guest speakers, they work as mentors. Rich Padula, a serial entrepreneur, graduate of the engineering school, and actually the chair of the Farley advisory board. So I spoke to Rich earlier. He is available to mentor students, which is a great gift. Tapasya Wancho, whom I met when she was the senior product manager at the New York Times. She is now a staff product manager at Tesla with a focus on energy. She joined our NUvention Energy class board recently, and I was on a call with her the other day, and all she could say is she's working on some very exciting things having to do with energy, but it's pretty top secret. But again, having access to somebody like Tapasya with her experience and of course her knowledge and connection to Northwestern is pretty powerful. Alicia Bowler-Davis is another McCormick graduate who has done very well for herself. She is the vice president for global customer fulfillment at Amazon, and she has agreed to join us in February for a virtual fireside chat on innovation during a pandemic. That panel will that fireside chat will be hosted by Vijay Vathaswaran, who is our Farley Distinguished Visiting Fellow this year. Vijay brings a wealth of expertise, not as an entrepreneur, but as an engineer. He has his degree in mechanical engineering from MIT, but he is somebody who has reported on and written extensively about innovation. And so he brings that unique perspective and the ability to grill our panelists. We're part of a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem, both at Northwestern and beyond. 1871, I mentioned, is Chicago's entrepreneurial incubator. The Garage, where I formerly worked, is the on-campus incubator, and we have a very close relationship with the Siegel Design Institute, also at McCormick. A lot of opportunity here. So it begs the question, where do I start? Well, this was a question, actually, Drew, who you met earlier and who will be available to take your questions after we wrap up the slide deck. This was the question Drew had when he arrived. There's so much here. He told me, contacted me over the summer in a very entrepreneurial way and said, the problem we have to solve is that I think it's tough for incoming students to understand what's what. What do you do? So he spent part of his summer putting together this flow chart, which is really quite wonderful. And I encourage you to grab the link if you want to go look at it a little more closely. But it gives you an idea of how all of these pieces fit together, the pieces that I've referenced earlier, where you can start if you already have an idea, if you already have a product, or if you just are curious. This is the roadmap. So I'm grateful to Drew for doing that. And that's sort of a good opportunity to maybe turn things over. They've introduced themselves. And as I mentioned, they're both Caleb and Drew are CESP students, entrepreneurship minors, co-founders of different companies. They have TA'd at Farley, and Caleb had a job at Farley. Anyway, they're fantastic. Two of many really wonderful students we have. And on that note, I will turn it back over to Fritz, who will field your questions, which we can see if Caleb, Drew, and I can tackle together.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much, Professor Ferguson. Really,
thank you. A pleasure.
Thorough walkthrough of Farley. We're definitely getting a lot of questions in the chat here about how early students can get involved with Farley, with the Garage, with the variety of these kind of spaces on campus. So I was hoping you maybe could speak to what that timeline looks like as soon as students arrive at Northwestern, and maybe Drew and Caleb can talk about a little bit more their own trajectories from when they started at Northwestern as well. So I'll start with Hayes here.
That's a great question, and absolutely, you are welcome to take a class as soon as you arrive. Some of them do have prerequisites, but the principals and a few other classes are available to freshmen. And I think Drew and possibly Caleb were among those who knocked at the door and registered for classes as freshmen. Is that true, Drew? Were you? I feel like that's true.
Yeah, no, definitely true. I found my way to Farley's second quarter of freshman year. And I can kind of jump in here quickly and just kind of like reiterate what Hayes was mentioning about like the relationship between all these different kind of resources on campus. And part of the reason I built that flow chart was I first found my way to the Garage, but very quickly was like recommended classes in Farley. So as far as like how early can get involved, I was, freshman year, first and second quarter was all in it. So.
And Caleb, I've known you for a while, but you're of course a senior. So maybe, when did you take your first Farley class?
I took my first Farley class fall of 2018. So I was a sophomore, into my sophomore year. Yeah. So I wouldn't say late to the game by any means.
Not at all.
But definitely a little later than being a first year. And I definitely felt late because a lot of people were first years. And yeah, I won't go into getting into the Garage. That I did like my junior year, which definitely felt late. But yeah, there are people who are first years. I've had somebody who was a senior taking their first Farley class in one of the classes I TA'd. So
yeah, thank you, Caleb, for that. There are multiple entry points from different schools, but also it doesn't matter what year you are in. It's easy to come in as a senior and of course as a freshman as well.
Wonderful. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing our screen so you all that are tuning in will be able to just.
You want me to stop it? I can.
Yes, that would be great. I think.
There we go.
Beautiful. So just getting to more of these questions here. are projects from Farley self-directed, or are students working on requests from clients, and is it similar to the Design Center at McCormick? Kind of like, how are these projects? Where are they coming from? How does it all kind of happen?
Drew or Caleb, would you all like to take that? I mean, at a very high level, I can tell you it varies from class to class, but I'll let you guys elaborate on that, and I can fill in any blanks.
Definitely. For the most part, my experience has been all self-guided. I've done a lot of projects through the Farley Center, and it ranged from just joining someone else's group project. I think I took engineering for entrepreneurship, which is kind of like an intro level entrepreneurship class. Joined a classmates project for that. And I've even done an independent study and worked on a business idea that I've had since high school. So haven't had any client-based projects, but I'm sure they're out there.
They are, and
Yeah.
You want to touch on that, Drew? Have you done any client-based classes where you were assigned?
I haven't done any client-based classes, but I wanted to mention that like there definitely is a progression to Farley Center classes. So as Hayes mentioned, like principles of entrepreneurship is typically like the first class a lot of people take when they're getting into Farley. And the actual project you work on is relatively self-directed, but there is a lot of hand-holding because for a lot of people, you're new to everything. So the professor and like the TA is a huge kind of help in what you're doing, but there's a lot of self-direction. As far as like client projects, I haven't experienced any of those, but as you get into like the NUvention type classes where there may be a longer term, you're working with graduate students, it's definitely more problem discovery driven. So you're talking with a lot more people. So while it might not be a client giving you a problem to solve, you spend a lot more time kind of digging into, what are these people that are already in this industry talking about? So while it's not a direct kind of like assignment, you're almost getting that out of kind of the interviews that you do.
Yeah, that's right. And we do have in fact, I think wearable technologies is one where there may be projects brought into the class. I'm not sure. It's a class that I have not yet attended, but typically the students come up with the projects under varying degrees of guidance from faculty and also mentors. I'm on the faculty of the Web and Media NUvention course. It starts in January. It's a 2-quarter class. And in addition to a faculty team of 4 from different schools, we have a bunch of mentors who have agreed they'll meet once a week for an hour with each of the teams. So those are real world practitioners who can come in and do more of that hand holding that Drew referenced.
Perfect. Another question that we're getting in here is how can students participate with the Garage or with Farley without necessarily maybe minoring in entrepreneurship, or do you pretty much have to be enrolled in a class to get involved with Farley or the Garage, or what are kind of the different pathways into, I guess?
One of you guys want to take it, or I can do it? Which the short answer is you don't have to be enrolled in any particular class to take advantage of the Garage, which is also it's open to all students on the campus and has myriad programs that are extracurricular. So now, to be involved in Farley, we are more academic. We may in the future have some extracurricular activities, but right now we're pretty class focused. But you don't certainly don't have to declare a minor to take one of our classes, and you certainly don't have to take a class to get involved in the very robust entrepreneurial ecosystem here. And that includes, I should also say, that includes participation in VentureCat. You don't have to have Farley or Garage affiliation to participate. It helps, obviously, because you're getting more engaged with a pretty active community. And so I certainly recommend it, and not just because I've been so close to both of these centers, but I do think there's a lot of value if you are building a venture. There's a lot of value to be gained from the extensive resources, both in terms of faculty and real world mentors.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. What are the popular industries and fields at the Farley Center and in Chicago as a whole? Is it tough to kind of find opportunities at Farley that are not necessarily popular here in Chicago or Evanston kind of based?
Drew, you look like you're ready to.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about that one. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like the amount of like mentors and resources and like the network of Farley, that you can very easily get outside of the Chicago bubble. And I wouldn't say that Chicago has a super strong kind of like only these few industries. There's a lot to have in Chicago, and a lot of experience and like you can get from the city. But I've worked with like mentors and different people that are heavily connected to Farley, that are all over the place, working in a myriad of different industries. So it's never felt to me like there's only a specific amount, of like, not everyone's doing like retail or everyone's working on medical devices. I've seen, a huge range of different projects and mentors, in Farley. So I don't think there's any sort of, specific group that you'll see.
Yeah, and while there certainly is a draw to, we certainly see a lot of students who want to go work in big tech. They want to go out to the Bay Area. That may shift as more and more of those companies shift to remote operations, but that is a draw. But we also have a large number of students who are focused in creative entrepreneurship. They want to pursue innovation in theater, or they want to make it themselves as an actor. They take our creative entrepreneurship classes. There also is, we are very interested in offer classes in social entrepreneurship. So this isn't all about founding the next big tech company, but a lot of students after they graduate a lot of our students, and I can say both from Farley and the Garage, do seem to gravitate west. A lot of them, like Charbel Burjas, who I referenced in the earlier slides, stayed here in Chicago, where we've got Groupon, Grubhub, and some other high profile companies.
Excellent. That's really great to hear. I know we always, in the admissions office, are promoting the Chicago draw, especially for folks who are interested in industries that are so based here. So it's really great to hear that the Farley can extend wide beyond maybe the more norm industries that are located here in the Windy City. So that's great to hear.
And I would just mentioning that, I mean, it hasn't even been formally announced, but one of the early executives at Groupon is going to be closely involved. He's already a mentor at the Garage. He's able to open up doors. We've toured Groupon. So there is a lot of experiential learning when that is a possibility, and there's no shortage of cool places. Cameo is based in Chicago. So I'm looking forward to the day when we can all go visit Cameo and see how they do what they do.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Evan here in the chat has a very specific question. And I'm not sure if either of you guys can speak to this necessarily, but he's kind of curious about how is there really any overlap in the teamwork process from the design thinking communication courses offered through the McCormick School of Engineering in their first year series and the classes in Farley? Is there a lot of that kind of team oriented coursework? Is it really built into the curriculum in a similar way to DTC? Any sort of insight on that?
Either of you guys want to speak to that?
I can speak to that. I mean, I'm curious to hear Caleb's opinion on this too. So I never actually went through kind of DTC, and that I didn't come to Northwestern as a full McCormick student, but have a lot of friends that are in McCormick, and majoring and doing engineering. And my understanding is like, I'd say there's a lot of overlap in that, like learning to work with a team and solving a problem in a very short amount of time definitely translates to a lot of Farley classes, but not in a super repetitive way. It's those are skill sets that like you don't take one class and then you're like set for life in learning how to like manage a team and like solve a problem. So I know people that have taken both DTC and a bunch of entrepreneurship classes and haven't felt like it's been the same thing. But if you're building those muscles very early on in your, Northwestern career, I think it's super helpful, because a big reason that I see a lot of teams not go beyond the class or maybe not enjoy their project as much is they don't have kind of that team camaraderie, or like don't work well, or don't have kind of a clear structure in how they're building things. So taking kind of a DTC type program, it definitely has been helpful for a lot of my friends.
Yeah, I also did not take DTC, so I'm not familiar exactly with everything that goes on. I have had most of my friends are actually engineers, which is weird. But I think I I wouldn't say that there's a lot of overlap in terms of material or anything like that. Like what you're going to get from a DTC class, I think will be pretty different from what you get. I don't know from the experience of DTC, but I think with my entrepreneurship classes, I've gotten a lot more into what is a problem and defining a problem very concretely. And I think that skill alone is really, really valuable. Um, and I think in terms of teamwork, like Drew said, I think as much experience you can have working in teams as a college student is going to be beneficial, especially now everything is going virtual. It's kind of difficult to connect. I think that experience is super, super valuable.
And I would just add to that that we do enjoy a very close relationship with Siegel, which of course is also housed at McCormick, and I'm in conversations with their leadership to look for more ways to partner.
Great. Thank you guys for clarifying that. I know Alicia actually kind of had a great follow-up question. How are classes in Farley structured? Are they kind of more theory-based? Is it more project application-based? What's kind of the average Farley course look like, if that's even, is there like kind of an average mold to kind of go off of?
Caleb or Drew?
Yeah, I can jump in here. I mean, my answer would be yes, and that like I've taken a lot of Farley classes. I think I like completed the minor by the end of my sophomore year. So I've taken a lot of Farley classes and plan to take more. At first, it felt very project team based, where you get a team in the beginning and you get an assignment or you figure out a problem, and then have some sort of culmination presentation, where there'd be judges, and it was very self-directed and team based. But I've also taken a lot of classes that are more like a traditional class, like startup accounting and finance that Hayes mentioned earlier. Is very much you're listening to, really cool accountants and people in that field talk about the different terms and, how you write a balance sheet and an income statement. And that's less project team based. So it's definitely a good mix. I would say based on like a lot of my friends in other schools, Farley is definitely known for having a lot of really strong like team project type learning. But it's definitely not weighted super heavily that way.
Well said.
Yeah, I agree. I think as you progress throughout your time in the Farley Center, your classes become less team and project based and more specific. So I've taken, launching your brand or storytelling for business, which are classes in which we apply the information, we practice it in the context of whatever project we're working on or whatever we decide to, come up with for the sake of the class. But it's not as much as, building a business.
Awesome. Thank you guys for clarifying that. That's super helpful. I know a lot of students are always interested in what the class space and structure looks like, so that helps a lot. We are officially entering the end of our program here. It's already 5:45 Central Time. So before we go, I wanted to give everyone a quick chance to just kind of say a little parting word to our prospective students as they embark on their admissions journey. If they've already applied to Northwestern or if they're still cranking out that personal statement, is there any piece of advice that you would give them as they apply to college and think about pursuing entrepreneurship in undergrad and beyond? Do either of you two guys have something off the top of your head to start us off with by chance?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I don't think we'll have time for, but the main thing is just like, and again, I'll point back to kind of the flow chart that I made, is don't feel kind of threatened by what a lot of people have done. Like, I think sometimes it can be very overwhelming to look at like this long slide deck of like really cool alumni that have done crazy things. And you're just like, high school, junior, senior, and everything's in your head is like going nuts. Just know that like, I think in a lot of schools, but I know especially Northwestern being here is very good at like coming in and you have no idea what you want to do, but you're interested in entrepreneurship, you're interested in engineering. It's very easy to find your way. And it's not like there's this huge jump where you immediately have to be building a company and launching it. And that's what you work on outside of school and you're making tons of money. So I think just knowing that coming in is really helpful. I was someone that definitely saw like all these really cool alumni, which is awesome. But it puts kind of this pressure, it may be subconscious, of like, okay, I need to be doing all these things very, very quickly. And there's a lot of great resources and a lot of great people at Northwestern that can help you kind of get to that point or find another path for you. So just don't feel that pressure. I know this is already a crazy time for everyone. So, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think Drew hit a lot of what I wanted to say. I think college is a time to explore yourself and explore what you want to do. And I think giving yourself a chance to do that without any sort of boundaries is great. Like I highly recommend just trying anything that you're interested in some capacity, whether it's joining a club, picking up a minor, but just if something is interesting, try it. It's a very, especially Northwestern, a very safe environment with the quarter system and everything to just try different things and really explore. I've had like 6 majors, 7 majors. It's kind of ridiculous. And I think in terms of entrepreneurship, if you were at all interested in that, definitely get involved. At Northwestern, I know there's the Farley Center, there's the garage, wherever you go. I think the goal is not, like Drew said, to build the next billion-dollar corporation, and more so about learning how to problem solve, learning how to think entrepreneurially. And I think that is super, super important and super valuable for anything that you decide to do.
Really beautifully said, both. And I would just add to that please keep in touch. If you have further questions, feel free to write Farley at northwestern.edu. Always happy to answer questions that way. And follow us on social media. That's the best way of getting a sense for what we're up to. So really appreciate all of you coming to this, and also wish you well, and just know that if you do wind up here, please come see us in person.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Hayes, Drew, and Caleb, for spending this hour with us this evening. Really appreciate the insight, information, and perspective you're able to offer all of our prospective students as they figure out if Northwestern and entrepreneurship is in their future. So with that, thank you all for tuning in this evening, or again, whatever time you are, wherever you're at, for tuning in. We still have 2 more days left of engineering week. I believe tomorrow we have another faculty panel, and Friday we have an internship and co-op session on those different type of pre-professional opportunities through the McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Science. So be sure to tune back in for all of that. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight to our YouTube channel for the Farley Center on Entrepreneurship session. Stay healthy out there, take care of yourselves, and take care of your communities and those around you. Wish you all the best and stay safe. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.